All right, now
I'm over
anyway, this
Josh.
is the big subject. All right, I've been
Yeah,
working on this
this is the
for
bread and butter.
months. Wait, not months, weeks. Well,
28
well, since
hours.
last month. Yeah, about 28 hours total I spent working on this. This is the official Christian PowerPoint. And by that I'm gonna teach Jack. This came about because Jack he's met Christian, which I never have, and he's much more knowledgeable on Christian. I would say that's the thing. You wouldn't consider yourself more knowledgeable than Christian.
No, I've shaken their hand though, and I've had conversations with them.
Yeah, and in the same way where like we were talking the other day about how people use the term like you're autistic for something, you know, like you work
Yeah.
on it all the time, that you obsess
Yeah.
on. I'm autistic for Christian. That's how
Yeah.
I'd put it. And so,
Autism is a pretty powerful thing.
yeah,
It's
no,
good.
it actually is. Yeah,
It's good.
and what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show Jack this PowerPoint that's like a very thorough history of Christian.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: it's not gonna get done all today because it's so long, or at least I don't think it will.
Yeah.
So here we go. I'm going to show Jack, and feel free to ask any questions or talk about or anything.
Mm-hmm.
This is for you to learn, and this is going to be the rest of the show. So if you're not interested in Christian, well, still stay because I want you to learn.
I'll be giving personal stories too.
Yeah. So here it is, Chris. So the title. Let me make sure I have it on the right slide here.
Ooh, the
This
formatting
is
is
Christian.
a bit. I don't know about this.
What do you mean?
I wouldn't present this if it were my thesis. That's all I'm gonna say.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, just a format, dude. You gotta
No,
center stuff.
Yeah, I know. Well, this isn't a. Well, first of all, the slideshow format I chose, those lines that you see there. I mean, people
Yeah.
listen, can't see them. They can't be moved.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure they can though.
No, they literally can't. I tried every way you possibly could.
Dude, this is your thesis. This is what you've been working on.
Okay, well, good thing people don't get to see it, you know. All right, but
Yeah,
anyway,
I shouldn't have said anything. Freedom of
It's okay.
speech.
no, I'm glad you. Well, I mean, you can say something, but I'm just gonna disagree with you. I
Okay.
disagree with you.
Freedom of speech.
All right. Okay. Well, I didn't try to deny that.
That's what I'm saying. No, now it's your freedom of speech.
Oh, okay.
So then
Well,
diss me.
I kind of did a lot earlier, so I'm not gonna.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, but anyway, so this is Christian, a semi-comprehensive history, is what I named it.
All right.
So I need to put some disclaimers here before we get to this. So Christine Weston Chandler, which is his full name, is an internet lolcow, as I put it, the creator of Sonichu.
What's a lol cow?
It's a term for like people online who are get made fun of and all that, or do goofy things and get made fun of. The expression really comes from they're a cow where you milk the lols right out of them.
I
That's
see.
like really old internet talk, like 2008 internet talk. But
Yeah, you point and laugh is what I'm hearing.
yeah, and it's probably the most documented person in the history of the world.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and so all information I got was basically from my own memory of this stuff when it happened. When we get to that point, the quickie, which is the the Christian wiki, and then the Christian Comprehensive History series from Gino Samuel. That's where I got all the information. So thanks for. I mean, they obviously did not give me permission to cite them here, but thanks anyway to those guys for making it possible. And as for pronouns, because Christian is kind of like weird on that. I just mean Christian at this
Weird.
point uses. Well, I'll explain what. Well, Christian. I just mean like the discussion around Christian, not how his
Oh.
but like the way people. There's like no set way of how to address Christian and like the Christian fandom, if you want to call it that, the Chris fandom. And so I'm gonna use he him pronouns for Chris because Chris now officially uses any pronouns. So he just said just whatever you prefer using, and I use he just because that's how it's written in like the quickie and like 90%
And
of
the
the time.
Bible.
And the Bible, yeah. And so that's basically what I'm going to use. And then I'm just going to say this is pretty necessary. Listener discretion is advised. Viewer discretion is even more advised for Jack for some stuff we're going to get into. But
I'm ready. You've
Yeah.
shown me worse.
yeah, and so I'm just saying things get bad pretty fast here. So I'm just saying, like, and also for people who like find it necessary, there's I have officially given you the trigger warning here because there's some really sensitive topics in this, which again, anyone who knows Christian stuff has. And then also I feel like I didn't write it in the slideshow, but one more thing I kind of have to say is that people who follow Christian are really like finicky. It seems like about don't try to get involved with Christian's life or else you're like a ween or a troll or whatever. You're like you should get made fun of, which there is truth to that because most people making fun of getting involved with Chris are
Wait, but they're in the Christian fandom and they're saying
Well,
you
they-
guys are losers.
no, not for knowing about Christian, but for the idea is don't try to contact Christian or directly like mess with Christian in real life, that kind of thing.
Kind of, but that's kind of like the pot calling the kettle black.
Well, I mean like the quickie type. Okay, I think that's honestly. Well, yeah, honestly, I think you're right, but that's kind of like in the quickie they say that.
It's like you're
And
a loser.
And here's the thing: I agree in terms of you shouldn't try to contact Chris and like I don't mean for any reason, but it's like make fun of him. Like, I agree that you shouldn't. At this point, there's no reason to contact Chris Chan and troll him any further because he's been through that enough at this point. But I don't agree with never contact Chris Chan under any circumstances. But also people who say don't try to get involved with, don't make fun of Chris or whatever on the internet anymore. This is not, I was going to say it first, and a lot of people who do documentaries on Chris Chan say this. I'm just here to document it. I'm not here to give my opinion. But then I realized there are some things that I feel like are so like objectively ridiculous with Chris Chan, you kind of have to give your opinion. So I'm not saying I'm not giving my opinion, but at the same time I am saying I feel like, say like don't contact Chris Chan, don't try to like do stuff with Chris Chan. Because at this point, after, how he's been arrested for horrible things, there's really no point and no way it ends well. So this is not supposed to be me goofing on Chris Chan or anything, so people don't get upset about that, all right? I'm just saying what's happening, This has a few parts where I give my opinion, like I said. So, okay, so the background. I forgot to also mention, again, you don't get to see them, the audience, but I put some photos and like some quotes that I thought were funny and stuff.
A baby photo of Chris Chan.
Yeah, so anyway, Chris Chan was born Christopher Weston Chandler on February 24th, 1982 in Charlottesville, Virginia, like around your neck of the woods, basically.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah, so you know that area. And he was born, his parents were Robert Franklin Chandler Jr. and Barbara Ann Chandler. And Bob was a technical engineer, and he was at this point, and Barb was a finance secretary, so they were both still employed at this point. And both of them kind of had strained relations with their kids from their previous marriages, so they'd both been married, I think, once before and had kids. And like obviously you probably can't blame that all on them, but at the same time, there's kind of a common denominator where, like for example, Bob's daughter was so like estranged from him by the time he died that she didn't attend his funeral. Mm-hmm. So there's like a root cause here, or like a common denominator here, but who's to say what the complete cause is? So anyway, they kind of put a special emphasis on trying to like do a good job with raising Chris, which had its certain results. Were you saying something?
Do you know which hospital he was born in?
I think it was the same one Bob died in, and I know that one.
Was it Martha Jefferson?
Yeah, it actually was.
My little brother was born in the same hospital as Chris Chan.
Your brother could have been born in the same room as Chris Chan.
That's not true. My little brother is. Oh, yeah.
No, I mean not at the same time, but yeah, I don't mean that you guys are the same age, but yeah. So anyway, growing up, Chris lived in this house, 14 Branchland Court, was the name of it, and for the first 11 years of his life. And then his family eventually returned to it in 2000, and then he lived there until, I put for several years more, until a certain event happened that, again, we'll get to eventually. So anyway, he said his first word that he ever said was monkey, and it was at 6 weeks old. But that's, medical officials think that's impossible, so I don't know.
What medical officials are you hearing about here?
No, I don't mean they've directly said it like a doctor reacts to Christian. I mean like medical professionals say it's impossible to say your first word at 6 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, and then he had autism, high functioning autism, as he insisted be referred to as, and it was since birth, like autism can only be acquired, but he claims it was brought on by a traumatic incident in his life, which was when he was 18 months old. He was locked in his room by a babysitter who Chris says her name was Roche. Although later on and I'll bring up why. People always thought it was funny because they thought that he said that was her first name, because that's just a funny first name, Roach. But
yeah, her name's a kid Roach.
Yeah, but apparently it was probably her last name. He just doesn't know her first name. But anyway, he was locked in his room with a bunch of toys, and he cried until his parents came back, and that stopped him from ever talking again for 6 years. He never talked.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, that's like Einstein. Einstein was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet that had a profound effect. But honestly, when you're old and you have children, doesn't that put them at greater risk of things like autism?
Yeah, it does. And that was probably the reason, because Bob was, I think, 54 and Barb was 41 or something like that. So, yeah, his parents were pretty old. So, anyway, the reality of this whole thing, though, is that, autism can't be acquired later in life. So, technically, I'm not saying this thing didn't happen that inside, like, put an effect on him, but that didn't give him autism. And so, anyway, also, according to Chris's half-brother, whose name is Cole Smithy, and he's not really relevant again for the rest of this, but whatever, he is involved. He said that Bob and Barb, they left Chris alone with Roach every day for years so they could go out to drink, and despite them knowing she was unfit as a babysitter.
Whoa.
Whether or not that's true, I don't know. And then this is how people found out the reality of the babysitter, which is that according to like a telephone directory that someone found, and this just shows how insane these like quickie people are with finding stuff about Chris, and I respect that. I'm not upset because I found this on the quickie. there was a guy named James R.T. Roach who lived in Ruckersville in 1983, and so likely he was like the babysitter's father or something.
Oh my goodness.
But again, her actual name no one's been able to find, but that's what happened with that. So anyway, then in the 1980s, Chris obviously doesn't really talk much about that period where he couldn't talk, so there's not a lot of information. But one thing he mentioned that people always kind of funny is that his best friend as a child was a girl whose name was Sarah Hammer, but it's looking back, it was more likely she was just kind of a bully who Chris hung out with for some reason. And for example, she once told him to go into their house's crawl space because Casper the Friendly Ghost was hiding there, and he did it. And then also she told him that if he ate the upper thing of a honeysuckle, then it would taste like honey.
Upper thing?
Yeah, and people believe that's like I don't know anything about honeysuckle, but apparently there's a part of it if you put in your mouth, which
I love honeysuckles. Back in Virginia, they're all over. All
really?
over the place, yeah. Oh, she's talking about eating the flower.
Well, isn't there a part of it that's like poisonous? Apparently.
I don't know about that.
Well, there's a part of it, I guess. Again, this is according to the quickie, that's poisonous or dangerous to eat.
Oh, I bet it's the flower. So a honeysuckle, you ever had a honeysuckle?
No, I haven't.
You pull a little thing through it, and then that literally has honeydew on it, and you lick it, right? Mm-hmm. But if it's the upper part, I think she's talking about eating the whole flower.
Yeah,
that's just mean.
Yeah, well, she tried to get him to do that apparently.
Wow.
So realistically, she probably was just a bully who took advantage of Chris's naivete. But whatever. But anyway, he started talking in 1989. 6 years after he stopped, after reading the name of a GoBots package, which was a line of toys back then.
Oh.
Why he felt the need to talk then, I don't know, but that's when it started again. So anyway, growing up, Chris attended Greene County Primary School until the 3rd grade. Although that was during the period where he didn't talk, so I don't really know exactly how he, like how the teachers communicated with him or anything.
I used to do cross-country meets against Greene County.
Oh, yeah. So this is personal to you now.
It's always been.
That's true, yeah. There's going to be a lot of things where you're like, oh, I know that place.
I know. Like, literally, I used to run on, we're not getting there yet, but the PVCC campus.
Yeah, no, that's a big part of Chris's life, too. So anyway, in the 4th grade, he started going to Nathaniel Green Elementary School. But that was not a good experience because he claims he got pinned down by some teachers while they audio taped his screams and cries. And that the principal once put him on his lap and, quote, said some offensive things to him. And he later classified it as sexual assault.
Whoa.
So just to clarify, people don't really know what he means by the teachers audio taped his screams and cries. I think most people agree that probably happened, but they don't really know what. One theory that someone said is that he was probably like freaking out in the class for whatever reason, and so the teachers came and tried to restrain him because of how crazy he was getting, and that they audio taped his screams and shouts because they wanted to prove to his parents how hard it was to school him.
Yeah.
That's part of the story later on.
And especially down in the South during this time. It's not the most progressive when it comes to mental illness and all that.
Yeah. So I don't know. That might have been what happened. And then as for the principal thing, believe, like, I'm saying this unironically, like, I agree, like, believe survivors and all that. But I think, we get into this later, but people have serious doubts that happened and that he just kind of made it up.
And also is Christian. Yeah,
that's true. And also apparently he got an F here, he said later, but he never said what it was for, which also had, like, a lasting impact on him. Because he was still bringing it up years later. So his parents homeschooled him for his 5th year of elementary school because the district insisted if he was going to stay, he has to be taken to like a special school because of how bad his behavior was. And so his parents didn't want that to happen. And Bob actually sued the school district. And apparently the screams and shouting is one of the things he sued them over, which is why people think it might be legit.
Yeah.
But the case was dropped. Some people say he lost, but it just got dismissed. And anyway, so the thing about the mental institution, which is where Chris said they wanted to put him if he was staying in that school district, people actually think it was this school called the Grafton School, which was like a well-established special education school, so it wasn't, a mental institution. But the thing why people kind of doubt the principal story is the idea, because Chris also claimed that the principal was gay as well. And the idea that an openly gay principal would be employed in the South in the early 90s is like, the leader of the children's education is pretty unlikely. So that's why people think Chris made it up. And again, I can't say for sure, maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, but
I bet there are just sprinkles of lies on truth. That'd be my guess.
Yeah. Some people theorize that the thing with that is that the principal was trying to like comfort him after he got an F or whatever, and just had him sit on his lap, and he just forgot that that's a rule, because that is a rule, and for obvious reasons. But, whatever happened, we'll never know for sure. Well, anyway, things were looking pretty bad for Chris, but in 1992, something magical happened, to say the least. So during the 1992 Christmas season, Chris and his family went to the Regency Mall, where there was an animatronic bear named Leonard Bearstein conducting, which is like still an act that exists. I don't know if you ever saw it or whatever.
No, never heard of it.
Yeah, but that is a real thing. So the animatronic was fully interactive, probably pretty advanced for back then. And Chris spent a lot of time talking to Leonard. So Leonard asked Chris's name, and he said Christopher as his name was. Leonard, or whoever's operating him, misheard it as Christian and called him that, which Chris decided to take as a sign from God that his name needed to be changed to Christian. Whoa. So sometime in 1993 or 1994, he had his name changed to Christian.
Wow, this is where it all began, huh?
Yeah, this is where things got bad.
God talked to him.
Oh, did you hear that?
That was me.
Oh, okay. That was like a guitar strum for a second. I was like, Jesus Christ, man. Anyway.
Sign.
So Chris attributes why he got his name wrong to he was English, is how he put it, because apparently back then Christian was only like a common name in England, and later on it became more common in America. But anyway, a newspaper piece got written about this in 1993, because I guess it was a slow news day or something. And Chris got his first exposure in the mass media, which he's had multiple times. I don't really even cover every time, but just by random luck, he's been in the mass media several times before, not for just being famous on the internet. And yeah, for some reason, Bob also got the date wrong, claimed it happened in 1989, which is before the thing even opened, the animatronics. So he was wrong on that. Also, Bob claimed in the article that he wanted to name Chris Christian initially, but he, quote, was chicken. And what that means is anyone's I don't know what that means.
Bob Chicken? I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, that's what he said.
He's seen crosses burning.
Yeah, and you don't want to see it. So anyway, Chris doesn't feel the need to elaborate why he changed his name because a stranger operating an animatronic bear got it wrong, but, whatever, that's his life. And also it's kind of funny that he acknowledges the real reason he probably got it wrong, which is he misheard it or whatever, but he still says it was a sign from God, so yeah, makes sense of that logic, I guess. So anyway, things also got to improve for Chris when in 1993, he entered a contest where he had to watch the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon every day for a week, which is, Chris is a big fan of Sonic, so that was obviously probably something he was doing. He had to write down the moral that Sonic said during the Sonic Says segment every day for a week and then submit the paper that had all the morals, and then it would be drawn out of a hat, and whoever, whose name drawn won the $1,000 sweepstakes, which is what the prize was. And Chris won. And so there was a news story done about, which was first time on TV. It's kind of an interesting video, but here I have it saved here. So this is Chris' first time on TV.
Finally tonight, Sonic the Hedgehog is running wildly in the Chandler household this weekend. 12-year-old Christian Chandler of Charlottesville was the winner in a video game shopping spree. Christian is one of only about 100 winners nationally to receive
it's just crazy that he keeps getting on
$1,000 worth of Sega games and equipment. For his parents, it's just another example of how well he's doing.
A young Bob, quote unquote.
Autistic child. This past
he's
fall, on his own
he's still in his late
initiative,
60s.
Contest based on a favorite cartoon character.
I had to do was exactly.
Still got a tag on his shirt.
A cartoon, and I'd listen to what Sonic says at the end of it, and write it down for a whole week. And then I had to mail it in, and I had to be drawn out of a hat. And
I just won.
This looks like analog horror, dude.
It only takes a few hours.
Yeah, it's kind of
the
fun.
VHS, and his voice is like shaky.
Yeah, it is in a way.
It's the beginning.
So anyway, in middle school, Chris he went back to a normal school. It was a different school district, but he went back to mainstream school. And he went to Providence Middle School from 1993 to 1996. And he was in a special education class for the entire time there, taught by Virginia Sanford was her name.
Why do we need to know that?
Because I know it.
No, but why do we need to know the name?
Well, because I don't know. I'm trying to be thorough here. So anyway, he later referred to Miss Sanford as the most influential person in his life, but he never really explained why that is.
Yeah, I remember this.
And I'm not going to read all the quotes. In fact, the majority of them I'm not, but I want to read this one because it's really prophetic for later. So in her goodbye letters she wrote to Chris, she said, always remember this. You show people where your weak points are located, then they will know how to push your button. If you never show them, they will never know. So that's
I don't know about that quote.
Well, what, you don't agree?
Don't be weak.
Well, it's just don't show people how to push your buttons,
Don't express yourself.
Well, no, but don't get angry at people and so, I don't know. It's like a pacifist message,
Yeah, I don't know about that quote. I got some problems with it. Sorry, Virginia.
We'll see. Yeah, it's okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if you stay. We'll see if you continue with that viewpoint after the
Little did you know Chris would show everyone his weak points, and everyone would make fun of Chris.
Yeah, multiple times. Yeah. And also the funny thing is how Chris said he didn't want to be in a special ed class, which is why his parents took him out of school. But then he went to middle school to be in a special ed class. So I don't know the logic about that. But so anyway, high school, Chris went to Manchester High School from 1996 to 2000. And the sad thing is Chris was one of those guys who peaked in high school, but he still wasn't that. It was not a very high peak.
He got right out of high school when I was born.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think just a few months before you were born, he got out. Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, the main reason he kind of says that, though, that it was the happiest years of his life was it was like the last time he had a normal schedule and the last time he had like a large group of friends. But jumping forward, and you say you don't believe this, Chris later found out that Bob made an arrangement with the principal to pay a group of girls to hang out with him. And here's the thing, okay, before I will let you say your piece why you don't believe it. Just to be clear, Chris says this, that the idea was planted in his head by a troll, I think it was. So he just asked Barb if that was true. And he thought it wasn't, but he asked Barb to make sure, and she said no, it was actually true.
When Barb had dementia?
It was in like the early 2010s, I think. So I don't know, was that?
Did she have dementia then?
I don't think she did then.
Yeah, I don't know, dude, because how would a principal ever sign off on that?
Well, they're trying to make a lonely, like, special ed kid feel better.
But for money? That doesn't... I can't see that happening.
Well, they paid the principal didn't make them. He paid the girls to do it.
No, I know, but I don't think a principal would ever... Like, that's just so weird.
Maybe, but I don't know. It was a while ago, and it was a different time. But I don't know. Maybe it was fake. I think, personally, I think it was real, but whatever. Maybe that was fake, you know? Anyway, so he still, despite the fact that kind of tarnished his memories of high school when he found that out, he still, when asked afterwards, still calls it, like, the happiest years of his life. So, which, again, is kind of depressing, but anyway. So this is when things start to get a bit interesting. So in March 17th, 2000... which is a very important day in history. We just passed the 25th anniversary. Chris was working on a CD cover project. We had to make an original CD. He had to make a cover for the CD, and he wanted to put Sonic and Pikachu on it, but they did not allow copyrighted characters. So for that reason, he created Sonichu, which is a combination of Sonic and Pikachu, to use for the cover. And this began Chris's lifelong obsession with this original character. And yeah, Sonichu's not really involved in the story for until a while, but this is when he got created, so I feel like I need to point that out.
I like Sonichu. I like this OC.
Yeah, no, Chris was a pioneer in making cool OCs. You know?
It's pretty distinct.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sonichu could have worked if he just did it a little differently.
Yeah.
But anyway,
is Christian a furry? Would you say?
Well, he doesn't dress up in like the suit or anything, so I'd say I don't think so. But he does enjoy
furry
the
club
artwork.
would disagree with you.
Yeah, no, he could count for like being in the furry club, but he's just not. He's not a full-on convention attending furry, you know.
Okay.
But he's probably fur adjacent, you know.
He's probably been to the convention.
The furries who we had on the show knew who he was, so yeah, he's like fur adjacent, I'd say. So anyway, when Chris graduated high school, he said it was the saddest day or one of the saddest days of his life because he had to say goodbye to all his friends. And which is, I think like a normal emotion, but you know, I didn't really feel that much when I graduated high school, but whatever.
Oh no, I did.
I was sad, but I was mostly just happy to have it over. If I had the choice, I wouldn't have gone to my graduation because it really didn't mean that much to me. It was like a more sad. It was like there was sadness to it, but I was just happy to be done with high school.
Yep.
But anyway, he was upset he didn't receive any special recognition for his art and how he put it coming out of his social shell. And he didn't shake anyone's hand at graduation. And then after getting his diploma, he just went back to his own seat and cried. And Bob was till the end of his life, as Chris put it, deeply ashamed by this.
Yeah, that's pretty kind of narcissistic.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if he expected it to be like the end of the first Star Wars where there's that like and like the ceremony because they blew up the Death Star.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what he expected.
To be like, they should have said something about me. Come on.
I understand him being sad about graduation, but come on, bro. But anyway, he also was upset about after graduation, his family went back to Ruckersville. And he was upset that he felt if he stayed in Richmond or the Richmond area. I don't know if Richmond was the town he lived in, but he could have been friends with his high school friends from high school. But considering they really didn't want that much to do with him anyway, that's pretty unlikely, even if he stayed there. So anyway, when he went to college, he attended Piedmont, Virginia Community College from 2000 to 2006. And he spent 6 years on a degree that should have only taken him 2. And that's not really known why that happened. So anyway, he originally majored in marketing. I don't know what he planned to do after that, but that was his original idea. But Bob switched him into majoring in computer-aided drafting and design, which I don't really get the logic of that either, but that's what he did. And so anyway, he initially, after he got his associate's degree, he never really did anything to continue his education, so it was kind of pointless. Well, I don't say pointless, but isn't that the idea after you get your associates is to try to go for something higher, but Chris never even attempted that.
Mm-hmm.
Although, to be fair, I don't even know if he really wanted to go to college. I feel like he would have been fine just living at home after that, but I think Bob and Barb just kind of made him do it. So anyway, working at Wendy's, which was Chris's first job, it was sometime in 2001, and his job was apparently janitorial duties, as he put it. He didn't cook anything or anything like that. And apparently he was not really the best employee because he made frequent mistakes and apparently drew an offensive picture of an employee he didn't like.
Wow.
So, although I don't know if that means it was a racist picture or like it was a picture that was just not.
I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah. And so he got fired for allegedly, he kind of changes his mind on why he got fired, but apparently it was for doing a terrifying Donald Duck impression, which made a child cry. He does a Donald Duck impression, which he's really proud of. And I mean, it's like kind of close, but people always call it scary and like terrifying. So he did that in front of a kid, and it made the child cry. Although Chris kind of sometimes says he didn't make the child cry, but so I don't know why he got fired, but whatever. But he was also given like conflicting accounts of when he left, because once he said he worked there from August to October of 2001, and he later said he was fired shortly before 9/11 once when asked. So who knows when it happened. But the funniest thing is, no matter what happened, he got fired from a fast food place after just a couple months. So
hey, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but and also that's a photo. That's not just a random Wendy's. That's the Wendy's he worked at. And
I've been to that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's the one in Charleston.
Bro, we got to go to like a Chris Chan reality tour sometime.
I think it's the one. If it's the one on Pantops, do you know where it is?
Not exactly. It's on a hill, though. I've seen other photos of it from other angles, so it's like on a hill. So anyway, this is when a really big part of Chris's life started. In 2003, he came to the realization that he needed a girlfriend.
Yep, been there.
Hey, who hasn't? Anyway, he's given contradictory reasons for why he came to that conclusion.
What? Why is he trying to justify?
Well, because he came up with he says it like it was a flick of a switch, like he never even thought about it before.
Oh.
So on one account, the most famous one is on his birthday in 2003, he got kicked out of English class. And that is confirmed, but he's given different reasons for why that happened. Once he said it was because in a paper he used the phrase exclamation you likely hear from a black person at church to describe something.
Oh.
And they called him racist and kicked him out. And another reason it was because they were like reading a book where the main character was autistic, and he made a point to tell the teacher he's autistic, like in front of the entire class, as like a look at me, or I don't know what he wanted from that.
That's why he got kicked out?
And yeah, apparently there was a misunderstanding, as he put it, and the teacher kicked him out for that.
Okay.
But whatever the reason, what happened next was he was crying alone by himself in the hallway because of how sad he was, and there was no one there to comfort him, so he knew he needed a girlfriend.
Okay.
And another reason he gave is because he went back when he went back home to like, I mean, not when he went back home, he always lived at home. Sarah Hammer returned home like one day to like say hi to the neighborhood and all that, and he saw her again, and that he saw she had a boyfriend, and apparently he came to the conclusion that he thought if she didn't have a boyfriend now, then they would have like when she came back, whenever that was, they would have like become a couple or something. So whatever the reason, he decided he needed to find a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so the love quest is probably just behind the creation of Sonichu, the biggest part of Chris's life, and pretty much the main motivator for why he did anything, frankly. So anyway, he worked his second job during this time, the beginning of the love quest, for Cutco, which I don't know if you know what that is, but first of all, that's the last job he ever had. And okay, allegedly, because I don't want to get sued or whatever, I'm just saying what the quickie describes it as. It's basic, because I don't really know much about it either. It's basically a scam where they'll hire anyone who's willing to pay $150 for a demo kit and get people to buy overpriced knife sets. So Chris got a job there, and his stint with Cutco ended when his boss basically like took the money and ran because it was a pyramid scheme.
Well, yeah,
and
I bet he's not the best
communicator. I was once offered to work for Cutco as like in a summer break during college. Because apparently they mostly target like high school students, and college students are generally dumb people.
Yeah,
and it works a lot of the time. So when Chris thought this would help him with the love quest by giving him practice on socializing, but he didn't go door to door. He never really explained how Sung and I's worked, but he didn't go door to door, so I don't really know how that worked. So when that ended, he realized he had no other options left, and he had to go to the last resort, which was the attraction signs.
Yeah, because if you think about it, trying to find a significant other in dating, it's just sales in a way. You're kind of selling yourself.
I never really thought of it from that angle, but yeah, I guess
you're kind of
going
door to door.
So anyway, his biggest hurdle with the love quest in general was just he had really bad social anxiety, and he didn't feel he could ask out a woman directly. Although he has also given contradictory answers to why he went to the attraction center. He once said his previous method was going up to random girls and asking them if they'd be his girlfriend, and that wasn't working because they all said they had boyfriends. So what he did next was he held up these attraction signs that he made, as he called them, which were signs that basically like listed his qualities and what he's looking for in a girlfriend. And
he's like an overpriced knife set.
Yeah, he learned a lot. So he just sat by them for hours on end around like the PVC campus and just hoping a woman would see them and ask him out.
I wish I was running through the campus at this point because I definitely would have seen him.
That would be great. I would have liked to have seen that too, you know. And anyway, so the
White
signs
male.
they were kind of notorious for the fact that he had very high standards for a potential girlfriend.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this to be rude, but Chris is not the hottest catch on the market. So what he was saying stuff like they can't be black, they can't be overweight, and they can't be like they have to have a good income, they have to drive a car, and he like had all these requirements for them.
The black requirement is that's crazy.
Yeah, that he'd do that in public. You got into a fight over it once.
Yeah, these
apparently.
signs are like really weird race. Like, look, it says 21 and single white male and points to him, and it's like, can you not see that he's a white male? Like, now I know.
Well, maybe he's like Michael Jackson. Or
Why is it so?
I don't know. That's what he did.
Oriented.
That's an important thing to him.
I think that was Bob's doing.
I think that's part of it. Why he's racist.
Yeah.
So anyway, during this time, he made his most significant piece of art at this point, which was the Christian and the Hedgehog Boys album, which depicted a fictionalized band of him and Sonic and Sonichu characters. Mm-hmm. So the album is basically a parody songs where he took existing songs and replaced the lyrics with ones related to either his life or Sonichu. And yeah, it's horribly mixed, horribly sung, all that stuff. And he doesn't get the karaoke version of the song. He just sings over the lyrics. Mm-hmm. But that's speculated because they believe the songs were from like Burger King and McDonald's Happy Meals, and that's how he got the CDs, and that he didn't know how to wipe the lyrics off because back then you didn't have like lyric replacement technology like we do now. So anyway, let's hear. This is probably his most famous song. I'm just gonna play part of it. This is "So Need a Cute Girl," and I guess you can guess what that's about.
Did he add the cheering?
No, this is from the version of the song he played. Again, people found this from like Burger King CDs and stuff. Like how he's like screaming the lyrics.
Oh, he's in a live performance.
That is true.
He's in an arena.
Yeah, who wouldn't go to see this?
So don't act like you wouldn't go see this.
No, I would. And I see the ladies walking. I'm not gonna do the whole. You get the idea. I never heard until recently the actual version of that song. I only ever heard that version. Anyway, so the biggest obstacle of Love Quest at this point was Mary Lee Walsh, who was the student affairs dean at PVC.
Yep.
So she encountered Chris with the interaction sign and said to stop doing it because it was soliciting sex.
Come on, freedom of speech.
Okay, yeah, I know.
You gotta bring Holland back.
Yeah, well, Mary Lee Walsh didn't see it that way. But
yeah.
anyway.
Does it reference sex on the?
No.
Yeah, I don't know about this Mary Lee Walsh. I think I'm on Christian.
Well, some of them might
side.
have. They might have said he was a virgin, which he mentioned a lot. So
okay, but
which I guess kind of counts. But anyway, she said she took his signs. Then Chris says she said he's not going to get a girlfriend, quote, this way or anyway. Which first of all, that's like a hilarious burn, but that's very unlikely. She said that. I mean,
looking at her, no offense, I could see her saying that.
Jeez, man.
I'm sorry.
Well, first of all, how she looked back then. She was a lot younger.
I don't know this woman. But
that's not nice, man.
Yeah,
I mean, there's some instances of like people seeing what she's done, and she seemed to be like professional, like emails and stuff. And see, I don't think she would necessarily say that.
Oh,
I don't think
she's a good person.
Frankly, I don't think she said it. Yeah, I'm not saying she's a good person, but like what? Like you could get fired if you told a student that. I mean, if you say you're not going to get a girlfriend anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can see why I don't think it's possible, or not possible, but I don't think it's likely. So anyway, Chris refused to stop, which Mary kind of was forced to escalate the situation.
Mary, first name basis.
Well, everyone's a first name basis in this pretty much. So anyway, Chris considers Mary one of his top 2 greatest enemies in life. And we'll get to the second one later.
Okay.
So he gets kicked out of school basically because he was forced to have a meeting with Mary in her office, which transpired. What exactly transpired isn't really known, but apparently Chris could not convince her to let him continue his love quest on campus. So anyway, apparently what he did was he started yelling at her and gave her a curse hami ha, which is a curse he does like in He holds out his hands like in Dragon Ball and stuff. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
No
he actually
way.
He
Did this really
he
happen?
claimed to do it. He yelled "Curse Hamihad" or held his hands out, and he said it's a curse that brings bad luck. And it's never worked, by the way, just for the record, because he does it several times. So anyway, he didn't get kicked out of school there somehow. But what happened next was he started to slander her on his website, and he sent her a drawing of a quote intimidating glare.
Of him?
Yeah, he did all this.
But like the glare, he's looking.
Oh well, it's likely just he's done this before, so it was likely just eyes that looked angry.
Okay.
Anyway,
Wow.
so Mary realized he needed help and suspended him from school for a year and forced him to take psychiatric evaluation if he ever wanted to come back, which he did. And the funny thing is that people don't mention he still should have been finished with school at this point if he was like a normal student, because he should have been finished with his associate's degree, but somehow he wasn't. Well, anyway, with all the free time, Chris turned to his new greatest creative endeavor, which was the Sonichu comics, which is basically it's supposed to be a comic about Sonichu, but as time went on, it just became about Chris basically and him get like wish fulfillment. And so I don't mention Sonichu comics a lot because not every issue is relevant here, but I do bring it up a few more times. And yeah, he began in 2004 after he got kicked out. And actually, like I said, I have the hand-drawn premiere issue signed, which is one of probably my greatest like personal item besides like my suit. If I'm going to be completely honest, I would honestly say that. Yeah.
Can I go off on a weird tangent here?
Make it quick because we're short on time.
Oh, are we?
We still have a while, but like we can't waste a lot of time.
Trying to get through it all?
A lot of it, yeah.
Okay. Basically, I went into it before, but that one time where I got transported to Quickville by Chris Chan, it was such a weird experience. Weird feeling, weird. I was like hypnotized. It was weird. And this Sonichu comic that you got, I remember you left it like downstairs where we live.
Yeah.
And for some reason, one morning, like I think I did like one of the hardest workouts like ever, and like that I've ever done. And I get home and I see this thing, and so I'm in like a really weird state of mind, and I read the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was literally like hypnotized by, dude, there's something about the Sonichu comics.
It is. I read them. It's.
Oh, you actually do?
I've read them all.
All of them?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's how you.
But I just wanted to say there's something going on here, something deeper.
Maybe it's MK Ultra type stuff, you know.
Maybe he's right.
Maybe he's got it all figured out.
Oh no.
So anyway, in 2004, Chris met a boyfriend-free girl, as he says, Megan Schroeder at the Game Place, which is a local video game and card game store.
That's a famous photo.
Yeah, of them together, and she just looks dead inside. But anyway,
They both seem a little awkward.
no, they are, because I mean the thing is, Megan unironically was friends with Chris and didn't have a problem with him, but she didn't see him as she didn't want to be in a relationship with him, and Chris knew that is the weird thing, but he kept trying to get her to accept it. Like as time goes on, he kept trying to forcibly hold her hand and touch her and all that, and she had to constantly say don't, which he never listened to. But anyway, he spent a lot of the next few years trying to like mold Megan into his girlfriend, which never worked. Spoiler here. So anyway, in 2005, there were a few instances of Chris breaking the law while working on the Love Quest. So the first time was at his local Walmart. He was accused of loitering for holding the sign, and so he got kicked out. And he came back 2 days later, and the managers recognized him. And so before they were like, "We're gonna do something about this," and they left for a second, and so he ran.
Oh wow.
So the next month, he got banned from his local Target a few weeks after they opened it because they asked him to leave, and he said no. So he was then handcuffed when he tried to flee again. It was a huge situation. He got arrested, and they got taken to court for the first time. And the case was dropped eventually, and he faced no charges, but it was kind of a dramatic public escalation of the Love Quest. In the beginning, there's hatred of what he calls managed jerks, which is just his term for managers. And the picture on the bottom right is this guy, a character in the comic that is a manager.
A managed jerk,
yeah, called Senior Married Comic, which is one of the craziest names in Chris Chan lore because no one really knows what it means, but he named him Senior Married Comic. So, yeah, that's a photo of him. So anyway, 2006, we'll just go through because it wasn't a very notable year with Chris Chan's life. Because the two most major events that took place, there's only really two, where he graduated from college in May, although again, he didn't do anything with his degree and just stayed unemployed. And then in June, Chris's dog Patty died at 19 years old, pretty old. And it was a really sad thing, but people mostly point out that it was like the only time really in Chris's life, for at least until when Bob dies, I mean, spoilers, but that he seemed to really actually like care when someone in his life or someone he knew or whatever died. Because Chris, we don't really talk about it here, but he has a remarkable talent of never seeming to care when someone dies. So that was like the only time it seemed like he ever cared when someone died. So anyway, on his 25th birthday, it was a very important day in his life where he made a self-titled DVD called Yep, I'm on TV. And he decided for the finale to make a video message for the world of like what he'd learned in the 25 years of his life. But it was mostly just him saying to do mainly very consistent gender roles, because it was supposed to be like what he'd teach the younger generation if he could.
Yeah.
It was mostly just stick to very traditional gender roles and stay straight. Is basically what it was.
What a message.
Yeah. So the video was like horribly produced, but it's one of his more famous videos. So here, I'll show you part of it. I mean, you've seen it before, so I'll just show part of it. But
I
Hello,
love this
ladies
video
and
so
gentlemen,
much.
girls
too.
and boys, and dudes of all teenagers, as well as the gals. My name is Christian Chandler. I am
We
here,
gotta start opening the show
and y'all
like
are
that.
there.
we could, yeah.
Dudes
This
of all
message is for everyone
teenagers.
of the present
That's
and the
who the
future
audience probably
beyond
is,
this
if anyone.
date, February 24th, 2007.
Well, we got
My
teens on the
birthday,
show
my
listening.
25th
Yeah,
birthday.
young boys are the people who
I
find
am
this kind of stuff funny.
high-functioning autistic, and in my 25 years, I have seen and learned so much.
All right, we've seen enough. So the point is
Hey, let 'em
basically,
start.
well, I'm not gonna watch the whole thing. I
I
just
want
wanted
to hear one
give
piece
you.
of advice.
All right, well, let's go to here.
Now, stroking the hair of said pony
Oh, yep.
is very relaxing and therapeutic, and also rubbing against your cheek. That's
Okay,
That's-
I'll take a lot away from that.
Yeah, good at My Little Pony. We got a My Little Pony toothbrush, so I mean that's close enough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so the Parappa the Rapper contest was in 2007. Shortly after this, there was a contest where someone had to, if you could perform 2 raps from the video game Parappa the Rapper a cappella, then you could win a prize of 2 PSPs and a trip to the Penny Arcade Expo.
Oh yeah, PAX.
Yeah, and so this was like an official contest made by Sony and all that. So Chris entered the contest hoping if he won, then Megan would go with him and he'd give her one of the PSPs and she'd have to fall in love with him. Which is kind of like a Disney villain like type plan, like Jafar from Aladdin, where he's just trying to get the princess to love him. And if I take her to the Penny Arcade Expo, she'll have to fall in love with me. But anyway, so his entry was very bad, but it still made it in the top 10 because there was very low entries, and realistically, the judges could just tell there was something wrong with him, so they let him be in the top 10. So again, we'll watch a few seconds of this. Here's his video.
AP Station. My name is Christian Chandler. I live in Rocksville, Virginia. I have a PSP.
Yep.
I like to rap. I play with the rapper. I go with you now. The only song
He
I
never
know,
says the N-word or anything,
Master
so it's
Onion,
clean, you know.
which I got from a demo I borrowed from my friend Megan. I have the PSP and she don't. So give me the PSP. I rap the rapper so I can give one to her. And we can play it together. So here we go. We're gonna sing it now. Master Onion a la mode. Kick, punch, it's all in the mind.
I like him
You
reading
want
it off
that
camera.
real fine. That you all things that I teach you sure to beat
I didn't understand any of that.
These Chris Chan videos have a real aesthetic.
No, they do, yeah.
With the background mixed with the camera quality.
I miss
and
this
just
era.
him.
I unironically miss this era of the internet.
Look, what's more kick?
All right, you get the idea. So anyway, he lost. Okay, you couldn't guess that. To a guy named Adam Stackhouse, and Chris did not take this very well. So he spent a few weeks complaining and bitching on the PlayStation forums and demanding a revote because he said Adam cheated by adding more than one person and background music to his video.
Oh.
Which, first of all, like maybe that was against the rules. People aren't really sure. Like it's maybe technically he cheated, but Chris cheated worse actually because you're not supposed to add your own lyrics either, and he obviously did that.
Oh, wow.
And he does it multiple times. So anyway, Chris decided to film a video where he printed a photo of Adam and his sister, who was the other person in the video, and shot them with a toy gun as like a retaliation.
Whoa.
I don't have this video here, but it exists. Anyway, the funny thing is, though, Chris, of course, broke the rules way worse, and Megan later told him she wouldn't have gone with him anyway, even if he won. So the whole thing was basically a waste of time. All right, so this is when things get really real. So in October 2007, there was a photo taken of Chris at the Game Place, which made it onto the Something Awful forums, which is like an old website talking about cringe-type stuff. And anyway, Chris was already kind of known on the internet because Sonichu, some people were like laughing at it, but it was a like extremely like niche thing, like barely anyone. But basically since 2004, maybe people knew of Chris kind of, but this is like the first time he got mass discovered. So anyway, he ended up on the website Encyclopedia Dramatica, which is like the satirical website, and many more internet users started discovering who Chris is, and like making fun of him and Sonichu and all that. So Chris discovered this shortly afterward, and he was particularly outraged by the amount of gay Sonichu fan art that the trolls made because he's
Wow.
extremely homophobic, which is something we didn't mention yet. And to be honest, actually isn't really that relevant in this, despite the fact that it's kind of, frankly, a major quality of his, but whatever. So anyway, when it starts to get bad, all right, cover your eyes.
My goodness.
So anyway, as for Encyclopedia Dramatica itself...
I would love for somebody to walk in right now.
Yeah, okay, let's make this quick. Anyway, Chris, he at first thought they were just mistaken about him and tried to make video like saying, "Oh, hey, like just for the record, take those sites down. I'm not that much of a jerk, really." And obviously they weren't doing it because they thought they were mistaken. They were doing it to make fun of him. So what they did is, when he realized they weren't going to take it down, he began like an angry war with the website, where he basically tried to delete or correct things, correct in quotes, which did not work.
Yeah.
Obviously. And so he decided the next stage was information overload, as he called it, where he tried to shove as much information about himself down the website that it would overload and shut down. How that would work is not exactly clear, but that's what he thought. And also this involved putting up 5 heterosexual Sonichu porn art pieces to the website.
I see that, yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think people theorize, and I agree, that he just did that to
I'm just kidding.
pleasure himself. Okay, thank God. He just did it to pleasure himself, and he was like, "Oh, well, I'll just put him up here anyway." So that was kind of why.
For those of you listening, I just pretended somebody came in.
Yeah, don't do that. But anyway,
I do like that piece of art.
Yeah, I'd hang it up on the wall.
Yeah, I bet you would.
But anyway, that's what he put. That was his method of fight. Realistically, he drew the art first and posted it second. Or he just wanted an excuse to draw the art. But
yeah, I bet he's done it before. I mean, look, he's got it down.
Yeah, I mean, he unironically probably has. So anyway, the Megan saga came to an official end when he drew. One of the photos was of him committing a outer course, I guess is the correct way to put it, with Megan.
What is going on there? What is he holding?
He's not holding anything. He's I don't think I can say that word. The word of what he's. Okay, don't try to say it. All right, don't.
No, I'm not trying. I'm not going to say anything.
Okay,
it's
the
just,
point is
he's
doing a lewd act with Megan.
A shower loafa. What is that?
Okay. It's her vagina.
Oh, what?
Okay, can you just
Why's it green?
Dude, I can't. I'm certain you need to stop because I can't say.
Okay.
All right. So
I
anyway,
don't want to get into detail.
We are. So anyway, the title is called. Again, I can't even say the term, but she finished for quick. I'll just put it that way.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway,
say that.
The thing is, at the moment, when he released it, most people thought it was supposed to be his twin sister character in the comic, which he made called Crystal Weston Chandler.
Oh no.
And the caption he put was "Your sister has finished for me" as the caption. He put. So people were thinking that's what he meant. However, Megan saw it and could immediately find out that it was supposed to be her, because he put her in the comic, so she knew what she looked like in the comic. Although, frankly, I've seen the two characters; they look basically identical, at least in my opinion. But anyway, so Megan was scarred by the picture for life, basically.
Yeah, he's giving a big thumbs up.
Yeah, it's one of the most iconic photos in Christian history. That's what's funny about it. But anyway, that's put an end to their friendship. And Chris, of course, just blamed Encyclopedia Dramatica for it, and he learned nothing from this. He tried to get back in contact with her and say sorry, now that she just didn't want to hear it anymore. So, and although people speculate, to be fair, with the Parappa contest, around the time their emails, the exchange they had were pretty. A lot of times they were kind of angry on her, but where you could tell she was kind of done with him because of all the times he kept trying to touch her and all that, and how creepy he was. So realistically, she probably would have left him anyway, left him alone anyway. But this picture just provided good timing for it. So anyway, things got worse for Chris in 2008 when he got banned from his church, the Grace Baptist Church, because his pastor became aware of all this kind of stuff and thought it was just crazy. Chris later claimed he didn't like what he said in the future message video, which implies that, it was a fairly progressive church, I guess.
Yeah, I've driven by it. It is pretty seems progressive. Yeah,
so that might have been the reason, but whatever the reason, he got banned. And he also, a few months later, got banned from the game place, which is where he met Megan, because, and again, it's kind of not clear. He goes back and forth on it. Sometimes he says it was because he kept hogging the flat screen TV by bringing his Wii in there and hooking it up. And other times he said it was just because he got into a shouting match with a kid there. So whatever the reason, he was probably a big nuisance and got kicked out. And so these recent incidents, as long as what happened with Megan, led him to return to YouTube to air his grievances. So this is quick second message. Again, I'm only going to play a minute of it, and he starts swearing in it, so I can't play much of it. But this is Chris's address to the internet.
Citizens of the internet, I present an open message to each and every one of you.
Now look how professional it is. Like, citizens!
But if you don't, I am Christian Weston Chandler, the original creator of Sonichu, the Electric Hedgehog Pokemon, back on March 17th, 2000.
Yep, no one before
8
him.
days earlier are void. I present this open message because I have a whole bunch of people on the internet.
Takes the glasses off
give me
dramatically.
hate. Show me a lot of hate. And I do not appreciate
Okay, you've seen enough. So he's just very upset at the people giving him hate, and he's not going to take it anymore. So anyway, in August, things began to actually kind of look up for Chris because he was contacted by a woman named Blanca Weiss, which is just the Spanish and German words for white, who claimed to be a fellow artist. And the two kind of started a relationship online pretty quick, which made it Chris's first girlfriend.
Oh.
Or so we thought, because here's the thing. Blanca and Chris spoke over online chats, and they did call once because the person, who was involved in this trolling effort was a woman, so she was just the voice of Blanca. But he never even once doubted her identity. But the trolls behind Blanca, were ready to have some fun. And just to say, for this point forward, when we get to the troll identities, I'm going to refer to them like they were real people. Because even though, the vast majority of them were not who they were saying they were, clearly. But I'm going to still call them as if they're real with a few exceptions. Because one, that's how the quickie usually does it. And then two, because it's funnier that way to imagine these people were real. So anyway, obviously Blanca was not a real woman, but Chris still believed it. And by the way, also because it gets boring to say a troll pretending to be this person told Chris to do this for this purpose, Yep. So I refer to them like they're real to make things interesting. So anyway, on the side note, this guy Jimmy Hill got into a beef with Chris. He was a former British sportscaster, and he claimed he started his own campaign in Europe saying he created Sonichu.
Oh,
and
wow.
he spread around Sonichu merch and made a killing from Sonichu comics, video games,
Is this
and
real?
anime.
This is a troll.
This is a troll. So anyway, in Jimmy's version of Sonichu lore,
this guy looks 70.
I think he was literally like 69 when he was happening. But anyway, Sonichu, in his version of Sonichu lore, Sonichu's a very flagrant gay guy. And he's Sonichu's father instead of Chris Chan, because Chris is Sonichu's father in Sonichu lore. And then Mary Lee Walsh is his mother. And so Blake, Blake is the Sonichu version of like Shadow from Sonic. So Dark Sonichu, he's Sonichu's boyfriend. And so anyway, Chris is furious about this and he wants to sue Jimmy. He never actually does because this just ends. He just stops before they could go any further. But Bob at one point said that Chris, quote, won a court case in England about Sonichu's copyright, which is likely just referring to Jimmy Hill. So, yeah, like I said, nothing really happens from this and he quits. So how Bob came to that conclusion, I don't know. But anyway, here's a quick video. This is pretty funny. It's the Jimmy Hill version intro of the Sonichu cartoon, allegedly. It's actually pretty catchy.
Oh.
I listen to this like unironically now.
I bet you do.
Yeah, I love it. It's either this or the AI music, man. Yeah, this was aired on TV according to Chris. Or he seriously believed this was like put on TV, and it was a big hit. Sonichu's Love Quest is the name of the game.
Xbox 360.
Yep. Coming soon to the Xbox 360 and the Wii and all those other consoles. So anyway, so Blanca's betrayal. So the Blanca thing was still going on during this whole time. So another troll just said they were Blanca now, which Chris, again, just believed. They just said, oh, hey, this is Blanca's other email address, and he just believed it. They got nudes from Chris, which, is not, including him wearing his mom's underwear because she was into that.
That's even worse with hindsight.
They put those on Encyclopedia Dramatica. And so after that, the quote, real Blanca got back into contact with Chris. And she was able to regain his trust by sending a photo of oh, it's me. This is the real Blanca. But her appearance kept changing, which he never addressed and never, again, found weird. So anyway, by October, Chris's trust in Blanca grew enough that he sent her his Sonichu medallions, which I haven't explained those on the show yet, but he wears a Sonichu medallion all the time, which is a medallion of Sonichu for basically no reason. And anyway, he sent those to the trolls, and the trolls decided at this point the Blanca thing had gone far enough, so they took it to the next level. There they are with the Sonichu medallion. You'll see. There's a knife with the Sonichu medallion.
Oh no.
Yeah, they destroyed the Sonichu medallion.
I guess it's theirs to destroy.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, they cut it up.
They bought it,
Oh yeah,
though,
they
didn't
cut
they?
the mouth out and put a pickle in its mouth to signify you know what. And at the end, they ended with they lit it on fire and pissed it out.
But they got this from paying Chris, right?
No, Chris sent these to him,
Oh.
like the originals.
Oh, okay.
So and also Chris apparently still believes Blanca was actually real, but the trolls got the medals, and that Blanca just stopped talking to him around this time. So yeah, okay, take that as you will. And this is the first step in Chris not learning anything from his mistakes. So I'm just gonna spoil this basically the message of this whole thing, because Chris never in any situation seemed to do that. Oh yeah, they ended with a note with love, Blanca Weiss, which okay, that's sadistic, but that's very funny. So anyway, so this is I'm only mentioning this issue of Sonichu 8, because it's kind of relevant to what's going on. So anyway, it was at first when he announced he was going to do a Sonichu 8, like it's a press conference thing, he said it was going to be a spring break edition. And that's why he changed the title to like Rose Chew and stuff.
It's pretty awesome.
Which first of all, it came out in January of 2009, so I don't really know. It's not really related, but okay.
We got to get our hands on this one.
Yeah, that can be the next one if you seriously want.
Yeah.
So I don't mind doing that. So anyway, he dedicated it to settling his debts with the trolls, because this was the first comic he released after the trolls got involved. So, or not the first one, but one of the first ones. So anyway, it focused on Sonichu and Rose Chew fight against 4-cent garbage, as he put it, which is a stand-in for 4chan and Encyclopedia Dramatica. I mean, despite the name, it was more so Encyclopedia Dramatica. And it was for posting gay porn against them. So anyway, it's one of the most infamous among Sonichu, fans, if you want to call it that, for its graphic depictions of sex and violence, especially against Jason Kendrick Howell, who's the guy who made the Encyclopedia Dramatica page.
Whoa.
He gets like his head torn up in the end.
We gotta get this
It's
one.
really graphic. So
one's
at this
metal.
point, Chris just dropped the idea of it being against the comic being about Sonichu and just made it about him versus the trolls for a while longer. So anyway, he didn't linger long on the loss of Blanca, because in late 2008 he started a relationship with this girl, Sarah Cassandra McKenzie, who went by the username Panda Halo. And Panda, she was mostly notable for she just kind of really pushed the limits on how much Chris was willing to accept if there was a promise of sex, because she often would just insult him in text form and yell at him. And just say she was on her period. It was her excuse. Like that, she would say, "Oh, I'm not on my period today. I'm sorry." And anyway, she also got plenty of videos of Chris masturbating released to the public, which is, take that for what you will. So anyway, this is an important character gets created. So when Chris was getting to know Panda, he received word that a 13-year-old Sonichu fan named Ryan Cash killed himself because he heard Chris was considering ending Sonichu due to the anger against Encyclopedia Dramatica, which is something he did say at one point. I mean, obviously he didn't do it, but he did threaten that. But anyway, when Chris was told about this, he seemed just more kind of, I don't know. He seemed more kind of just kind of shocked. Like, oh, I can get someone to kill themselves, than
wow.
sad about it. So Ryan's older brother Clyde, here's a photo of him right there. He was outraged by this action, and he devoted his life to avenging his brother's death. So this is the birth of basically the arch villain of Chris Chan's history. So his first action was to rape Panda Halo. Was his first thing to do as his revenge, which took her virginity, because they were both virgins.
Oh god.
So Panda said this in a chat with both Chris and Clyde. And by the way, Chris never questioned why the rapist gets to be in the chat, but he just kind of accepted it. But he sees Clyde Cash like a supervillain, so I guess it makes sense. But anyway, Chris didn't really seem that upset about it, and said he would forgive Clyde. And he basically implied Panda should just get an abortion. So anyway, Clyde seemed remorseful about his action and actually offered to take in Panda and raise the baby. And that doesn't make it right, obviously, but that's what he offered to do. And so Panda said if Chris could get Sonichu to become like an official franchise with Nintendo, then she would drop the baby off with Clyde and marry Chris. Whoa. And if he could not, then she would just go with Clyde. So Chris, well, he obviously didn't do that, so you can guess what happened with Panda. So anyway, this is entering the Miyamoto saga, where in early 2009, Chris began correspondence with Shigeru Miyamoto because he wanted to turn Sonichu into an official franchise, which Chris, believed without questioning, obviously. But one of the biggest impacts of that on Chris was that he ended up changing the names of all the real people involved in Sonichu, because he said there'd be a copyright issue or whatever. So they were no longer, because he used to just use their names of whoever he was mad at, but he had to stop after. So anyway, the correspondence eventually got to a point where Miyamoto proposed Chris come to Redmond to have a meeting with Nintendo of America's executives on making Sonichu into a real game. So anyway, the end of this came when he didn't attend the meeting, which you can guess he didn't, but he released a YouTube video saying he did, lying and saying it. So he didn't attend because he didn't have the money, which is understandable. But Miyamoto was upset because Miyamoto wasn't willing to pay him to that he just said to pay for it himself.
Yeah, right. He's trying to buy a franchise and he can't afford to bring Chris
Yeah.
out.
Well, Chris didn't. Again, he believed that. So anyway, he was angry at Chris for the betrayal, and it got to the point where Reggie Fils-Aimé, the president of Nintendo of America at the
I love
time,
Reggie.
he emailed Chris and told him they would never make the game and don't contact them again. And so Chris released a video attacking Miyamoto and Reggie and basically, saying like, "Oh, how could you guys do that?" So anyway, Chris eventually realized this was a trolling effort, which is one of the rare times he found it out without it just being told to him, and that Miyamoto and Reggie were just played by Clyde Cash. But nevertheless, he still believed from this point on whenever Nintendo would ever email him again. But this time he realized it was fake. So anyway, this is when Chris's new girlfriend comes up. So this was still technically during his relationship with Panda Halo, but he wasn't really talking to her that much. So anyway, he started talking to Julie Milvana, was her name, and in January 2009, he was pressured in a chat room to confess his love for Julie while he was still technically with Panda. And so the other Sonichu girls were like a club of Sonichu fans who were girls. Again, they actually were mostly men, but they all called him a jerk for that. So with his relationship with Panda already kind of dead, he just started talking to Julie and with Julie. And then the final straw of the whole thing with Panda came when she supposedly died in the Australian Black Saturday brush fires, which was like a big event in 2009.
Oh, wow.
Despite that she lived in a completely different part of Australia, she said she did than where the fires happened, but Chris still just thought she died. But legend has it that she actually survived and married Clyde and had a family with him, like she said she. This is allegedly a photo of Clyde, Sarah, and their daughter Penny, which they eventually go into. And again, despite the fact that Clyde Cash looked nothing like he used to anymore, Chris still just believes this. So anyway, so Julie was apparently an immigrant from the country of Mulvania, and she moved to Ohio. And Chris never questioned the existence of Mulvania, which is a fictional country, or why Julie spoke with no discernible accent, and that says a lot. And also, Bob didn't question it, which is funny because this was one of the few times one of the parents talked to one of his love interests, and Bob was like, "Oh, Mulvania, we were just looking at it on the map earlier." Like, he literally said that, and he was wrong, so...
Probably thought of Moldova.
Yeah, well, Bob, taking L on that one, Bob. But anyway, in actuality, Julie was played by a 13-year-old boy who went by the username Blue Spike. So whether or not he, chose to troll Chris and got involved himself, or, another troll set him up for this is debated. Obviously, if it was the latter, then that's, pretty bad, basically child grooming. But anyway, Julie got some of the creepiest videos out of Chris, including multiple phone sex chats and his infamous sex tape where he was screaming Julie, which is the most viewed video he ever released. But anyway, there's one more video I got, which I'm just going to play part of.
What are you doing? Nothing.
So this was in the middle of a phone sex
I'm getting all these crazy
call. So
Nothing.
What are you doing? Nothing. Give me that crap. Now, what's going on? Dad, will you get out of here? No, I will not.
What was that?
I don't know, the computer went
You're
wacko.
about to kill
He's
yourself
deleting
on
all his
YouTube.
tabs.
What? What are you doing? I'm not doing anything. I'm going to wake your mother up and find out? No.
Okay, he cuts the internet down is the point.
What are you doing?
Christian, what are you doing?
So anyway, a bad thing started to happen when Julie got kidnapped, which was in late February. She got kidnapped by the Miscreants, which is an elite trolling organization. Think, Spectre from James Bond, operated by Clyde Cash, and Julie's brother Max is a member. And anyway, the Miscreants' ultimate goal is to make sure Chris never gets laid and dies a virgin. And the Miscreants kidnapped Julie and are holding her in Cleveland, and says unless he goes there to rescue her, they're going to ship her to China. So a bunch of trolls are just months ago trying to trick him into going to Redmond. His parents said don't go, and they actually suspect it might be a To Catch a Predator thing somehow. And then, just using simple logic, I think you know what Chris would do. So he went to Cleveland the next day, and in an attempt to rescue Julie, and his parents, worried he wouldn't make it back, and because he never even drove out of the state before. And so, obviously she was not there at the address he gave. So he went back to Ruckersville empty-handed, and he got some more bad news, which is his PSN account got hacked by Max. So there was a really infamous call with Max where Chris was basically forced to say Billy Mays is the new mayor of Quickville, which again shows how long ago this was. Say the N-word multiple times and then shove the Sonichu medallion up his ass in hopes of getting Julie and the PSN account back. And a lot of that was just for the PSN account, which is kind of the funny part that he was willing to do all that for the PSN account. But anyway, eventually Max decided Chris had suffered enough and brought Julie into the call. And so while there, Blue Spike finally revealed he was a 13-year-old boy and he had been both Julie and Max. And Chris did not get either the Julie or the PSN out of this. I think it just got sold or something. So anyway, this is probably the most
tasteful.
it's the most controversial saga, at least at that point. to among the Christorians, people who follow Chris. Because some people think it was funny and think when he got pain inflicted on him and he got like sex tape leaked, that was funny. And most people look back just thinking it was just sad and he took it too far.
Yeah.
And but although there is somewhat of a happy note of in 2018, which was nearly 10 years later, an adult Blue Spike, because he's still on like Kiwi Farms and some stuff. Sometimes people talk to him. He said he regretted the trolling, and when asked, and he said he would have still probably trolled him if given the chance, but he would have like done it in a different way that was more just about being funny. So anyway, Chris, the Julian thing you would think of would like have a deep impact on Chris, but it actually didn't much, because right after that he began talking to another girl online named Emily, who was actually a real woman who was willing to go out with him, which is a rare thing in a Chris Chan lore. So they went to the Fashion Square Mall, which was his first date. And for some reason, he brought Bob with him, which he never really clarifies on. And so anyway, regardless of whether this was an in-person date or not or what, it was basically just a trolling effort again. As the man in the pickle suit, which is a character in like Chris Chan trolling lore, he took Emily from Chris and took her to live with Clyde Cash, who took care of the rest of his women who Chris abused in his mansion. So anyway, despite the insanity of this whole thing, Chris didn't really seem to care when he found out about this.
So she was in on it.
Yeah, she was in on it. She was a troll. And anyway, Chris already had a new sweetheart in mind, actually. So shortly before his date with Emily, he began talking to this girl named Ivy O'Neill, who was interested in starting a relationship with him. And so after the date didn't work out, he just considered her his new sweetheart. So Ivy seemed to be like Chris's greatest love in a way, because he made a large number of music videos, and like a hypothetical marriage proposal to her, and all sorts of stuff. And he actually made a sequel to the Christian and the Hedgehog Boys album to celebrate his love for her. But she also inspired some of the more disturbing videos from Chris, including him spanking himself and drinking his own semen. And by the way, just because we're like nearly done, I'm just gonna get to the halfway point because we're nearly there, and then we can just go. Like it doesn't matter if we're simply past 7 or shortly past 7. They're not gonna kick us out,
They might.
Okay, if they come in, we'll stop. Okay, but I think we can go slightly past, all right? Because I just want to get to like the halfway point, because we're nearly there. Anyway, so Vanessa Hudgens got involved with Chris, the actress. I don't really know much of what she did, but she's an actress, I guess. During the spring of 2009, and she began saying that she'd like to cast him in movies and stuff. She thinks he had a good acting potential.
All right.
But then it quickly turned sexual, the relationship, where they started having sex chats and stuff. While Chris was with Ivy. So, yeah, this proves that Chris, even though he claims to be faithful to his... I wouldn't be a douchebag to my girlfriend. I would treat her with love and care. He still would just cheat on her if given, like, one opportunity, which is pretty funny. So anyway, Chris eventually confessed his infidelity to Ivy, which I guess is good that he didn't pull the route of just denying it. He confessed it to her, and that's how she even found out. So she demanded a series of videos, including him spanking himself to make up for his cheating. So interestingly enough, Vanessa was actually one of the few troll personas who wasn't taken by like just Clyde Cash or a member of Kiwi Farms or whatever.
Yeah.
It was by a guy named Joshua Martinez, who knew Chris since he was a child, which makes it like really disturbing.
Whoa.
And he tried to reconnect with him later on. Like they never really make clear, but maybe because he saw an easy opportunity to just screw with a guy named Chris. So anyway, yeah, a guy who knew Chris as a child is now having cyber sex with him. So
oh my
yeah, I mean, frankly, Josh was probably extremely screwed up too, to say the least. But
yeah, more than Chris.
Yeah. But also he made these like really weird lies. Chris, like, oh yeah, I date movie stars like Megan Fox and stuff all the time. I mean, they don't ever hear when you're around, but yeah, it happens. And Chris just believed that too. So anyway, the Ivy thing ended when Josh took his IRL trolling, if you want to call it that, against Chris too far when he sold him a marked up PSP to claim which had special features, which he didn't explain what they were. So Chris's parents decided to take Josh to the cops for this. And Chris's pastoral counselor, Rocky Shoemaker, wanted to begin like an official investigation into all the trolls, which would include Ivy, even though Chris was still with Ivy, supposedly at this point. And so Chris's parents said they didn't want to do that because they only want to deal with Joshua and preferred to handle the trolling on their own terms, is how they put it. But Ivy felt betrayed about all this, so she broke up with Chris. So Chris constantly, tried to get her back, but Ivy refused and eventually killed herself from the depression she had from this, which ended probably the happiest romance of Chris's life. All right, yeah, here comes a good part. Here's a really good... I think... I'll finish this saga and then we'll end it because we're almost at 7 and this is like the halfway point just about.
Okay.
The second half is not as long, so we should get through that pretty quick. So anyway, in the summer of 2009, a man who claimed to be Chris began posting videos on a channel called C Chan Sonichu Quick. And these videos partially began around that time as a response to Chris beginning to like change his image because he began to drink, which he used to be against, grow a goatee, and he shed his previously iconic striped collared shirts that he always wore. So anyway, from this point on, I'm going to call this guy Liquid Chris, which is what everyone calls him. And the other Chris is Solid Chris. which was given to them because of Liquid and Solid Snake from like Metal Gear Solid. Like, you know what I'm talking
the
about?
video games, yeah.
Yeah. So this is probably remembered as like the best era of Chris Chan history. If the Julie saga was like one of the worst, and this is like the best. Because he was probably like one of the only trolls who just set out to have fun with Chris and not like ruin his life, but just kind of mess with him.
Yeah.
So this isn't my personal favorite. My personal favorite's in part 2, but you know, it's we'll get to that. But anyway, so Solid first discovered Liquid sometime in July, and he didn't see him as a man who's like parodying him and making fun of him, but he thought he was trying to like legit steal his identity. And Liquid, when he found that out, was of course, you know, happy to play that up and say, "Oh yeah, that's what I am the original Chris." So it now became a battle of who was the real Chris. So Solid never questioned why anyone would even believe Liquid's the real one, but he just still kind of did. So anyway, also it was kind of funny for how blatantly hypocritical Solid was during this time, because he started attacking Liquid for his nasal voice, his bulky glasses, and his obesity, which was just a pillow he put in his shirt, and you know, okay, Solid's guilty of all those things. So ironically, actually, Solid stooped so low as to try to steal Liquid's girlfriend Casey by impersonating Liquid, which obviously didn't work, although they just pretended it did because it was funny. And that was pretty rich, as Solid often, like, he always says he hates other men for taking all the pretty girls and leaving him with none. And he was legit just trying to do that to Liquid.
So Solid here is Chris Chan.
Yeah, Solid's the original, Liquid's the
Okay.
other. So anyway, the SingStar Challenge came up as a way that Solid proposed. Well, first of all, the final straw of why he decided he needed to directly challenge Liquid was his YouTube channel got taken down because he made a video that was like threatening trolls or something. He made a video where he called out 3 people he said were trolls and like threatened them or something. And so his channel got taken down. I don't know. People always say YouTube was like more liberal with, well, free speech back then, but they were taking people down for just saying mean things about people back then. But whatever. Anyway,
He's
so
probably getting crazy, like being reported.
that is true. That was probably part
I
of it.
guarantee.
So anyway, his new YouTube channel is called IBA Chandler, which was basically he meant I am a Chandler is what it meant. It was like a pun. But that meant that trolls now speculated his real name. That was hiding his real name. His real name was Ian Brandon Anderson, is what they decided. So Ian decided to put an end to Liquid by proposing a competition called the SingStar Challenge, where there would be the two Chris's would have to sing 5 songs each, and there would be 3 judges, which they could each select 3 judges to judge who won. So as you can expect, because the judges were Chris said, Solid said, I'm gonna choose my friends to be my judges, and his friends were trolls. So you can guess how it went. But Liquid won, and because he can actually sing. And Solid decided to declare the contest. It was never determined who the real Chris was, but just for fun, because he lost. But all the real Sonic U fans know who the real Chris is. Just ask yourself, Jack. Would the real Chris play a fake guitar? Liquid could play a guitar. Solid always held up like a Guitar Hero guitar and said that was his guitar. So would the real Chris play a fake guitar?
Yeah.
Okay, well then you're lost. You're not a true believer
It's
like
Chris
me.
Chan. Are you kidding? You
No.
heard his parap.
The real Chris would play a real. As Casey's father said, we're going to get into something. I think the real Chris could play a real guitar. But so anyway, this is just to prove how much he was better. This was Liquid's version of "So Need a Cute Girl," which was not in the SingStar channel. He just posted this by himself. So. It's so good, it's like hilarious.
Desire to not hear you say I have a boyfriend, and I see the ladies walking.
Just to break character for 1 second, that actually isn't Liquid singing. He did a thing where his brother, he has a twin brother who was like an actual musician.
Oh.
He could play the guitar, but he didn't sing. I mean, he could sing. Because in the SingStar Challenge, he actually sang, but just for this video, it was his brother. So that's, to be fair, there is a little bit of leeway in that he has 2 people. Chris has a whole band, so never mind. No, there's no
Yeah,
excuse.
the Hedgehog Boys.
Yep. So anyway, Liquid after this was riding high following the SingStar victory and his recent engagement to Casey. But things got bad because he said he was going to leave the internet and make Sonichu a real franchise. And then he got kidnapped right before he could do it. And the man who kidnapped him was basically a man who was identical to Solid, which Solid denied was him and didn't even acknowledge looked like him, so that kind of makes things suspicious. I mean, okay, if we're going to break character, I mean, okay, obviously it wasn't him, but it's funny to think it was because everyone was accusing him. Like, you kidnapped Liquid during the time he was gone, which is really funny.
Yeah.
Like, all his comments were just, you kidnapped Liquid, let him out. And all that. So anyway, Casey called off the engagement with Liquid, seeing as he was gone, and she started to become friends with Solid. So anyway, Solid's relationship with Casey was kind of weird because they seemed to be just friends, or at least that's what she'd say, who were like testing the waters for a relationship, I guess. Although Solid said they were a couple now. Like, he would just say, she's my girlfriend now. But anyway, Casey tried to get Solid to do things like get a job and clean his house and eat healthy. Like, she tried to encourage him to do things that would better himself. So Solid, all he really did, he applied for like a few minimum wage jobs that had nothing to do with his degree, but that's really all he did to try to improve himself. And so Casey's kind of remembered as a mixed reception among the trolls as well, because, I mean, not as much as Blue Spike, but some people like respect she was like the first troll that really tried to help Solid in any sort of way. But also a lot of people just find her like annoying. And she had a habit of like she would never admit Solid was right about anything in like their calls. Like she'd always find a way that he was wrong somehow. So yeah, Casey has a mixed reception among the trolls. But probably the funniest highlight of the Casey saga was the father call, as it's called, which is probably the most. If the Liquid Saga is the best saga in Christian history, this was the best video in Christian history. I mean, I don't think it was, but I see where they're coming from. Which was a call Chris had with her father, allegedly, like, you know, like meeting her parents, I guess. And it was basically, Casey's father was a retired veteran who served in the Gulf War, and it was just a 2-hour video of like an experiment of what if a person who knows nothing about Christian has like actual accomplishments in life could talk to Christian about his life and grill him about.
Wait, is this guy real or he's
a troll?
Okay.
He wasn't the troll's father in real life. So he was just, and he was like 25 years old, which everyone thought his voice sounded really obvious, but I don't know. I didn't think it was. He was Casey's father was supposed to be 52 is how old he said he was. But I don't know. I thought he sounded like old enough. I mean, just had kind of a really deep voice, but people thought it was obvious it was a 25-year-old. I don't know, but whatever. So it's also where that quote of you got fired from Wendy's. You weren't good enough. Like I showed you, that was where that was from, him grilling him at the Wendy's thing. And it's also where Chris said that I am an American. And also it was really fun. Chris around this time made a video making fun of 9/11, like making a video where he was making these videos threatening Clyde Cash and saying, "Well now, Mr. Clyde, your fame and fortune shall crumble like the Twin Towers." He legit said that.
Oh my god.
And Casey's father just so happened to have lost his mother in 9/11, so that was pretty awkward.
Wow.
But yeah, it's like a 2-hour call, and it is like the magnum opus of the Christianity of just how it is. It's not my personal favorite video, but it's probably the greatest video in Christian history. So I suggest you watch that if you have 2 hours of not doing anything. So anyway, luckily Liquid returned in October, shortly before the father call, but Casey didn't start dating him again right away. And so anyway, after Solid spoiler alert, but he completely pissed off Casey's father and drove her away from him, she returned to Liquid. And so Solid tried to get Casey back, but it was too late, and Casey didn't even want to be friends with him by the end of it anymore. So Liquid and Casey officially got married in November, and Liquid announced this time for real his official retirement from the internet. And so in real life, again, to break character for a second, Liquid and Casey, interestingly enough, Liquid's real name is Chris. That's not like a joke, but Casey's never given her a real name, but it's not Casey. But the two trolls who did this are married in real life. They didn't get married at this point. Yeah, apparently it's actually kind of a beautiful love story in terms of Christianity, where they met as two trolls. No, I'm serious. This is what they said. Like, no, we're not joking. This is what happened.
These are trolls.
They met as two trolls. Or no, Liquid started because he wasn't trying to be a troll. He was just trying to be like funny. But he eventually got recruited by like Clyde Cash into trolling. Because that's how it works. This thing really was weird. But the guy who played Clyde Cash recruited him to be a troll and to like start getting involved with their trolling efforts and all that. And he met Casey that way. And that's how. And they were like, we need a woman troll. We need a woman troll to play Liquid's girlfriend. And they found her and they began dating in real life at this point.
And then real pictures of them.
Yeah. If you want me to pull one up, I will.
Yeah, I don't believe.
I'll do it because we're almost done. So they got married in November, and Liquid officially retired from the internet, like for good this time. So in real life, they did eventually get married. Not at this point, and now Liquid works as a doctor in cancer research.
Is that true?
No, that is true. Yeah.
I don't believe this for a second. These are trolls, and they're like, oh, now he's a cancer researcher, and they're married. I don't.
Why is that so hard to believe? People can meet through trolling.
Because they're Christian trolls, and now it's a happily ever after. There's no way this is real.
Like, I'll pull it up.
I think they got you, dude.
No, I'll pull it up. It's true. But anyway, okay, let's just assume it's real. I just bring that up because it's funny how Solid portrays him as like the devil, and in real life, again, assuming this is true, he's a cancer researcher.
Yeah. See, that's just too good.
So, and also his final message it was funny. His final video on YouTube was a video of like that song like, "There's no easy way out." You know that song?
No.
Oh, there's a song called "There's No Easy Way Out" that's like really like pumped up and like cool. Like, and he played it and he showed this fan art that someone made that I had on the screen of him and Casey getting married. Although Casey doesn't really look anything like she did in real life, but Liquid does. And the final text on the screen that he closed out was "You lose, Ian."
And what does that mean?
like he wins. He won Casey, and he's saying to Ian Brandon Anderson, aka Solid, that you lose.
Wait, Saul's not Christian?
No, Solid is Chris Chan, but he's also Ian Brandon Anderson, is what they call him.
Why?
Because his YouTube channel when he came back was IBA Chandler, and they decided that means it's an acronym for Ian Brandon Anderson, his real name, because he's not the real Chris.
Okay.
Okay, do I need to really? Okay, do you want me to?
I'm
just
really
explain it?
confused.
Okay, the Liquid's whole thing was he was saying he's the real Chris Chan. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll put it different. This new guy, Liquid, was saying Chris Chan was not the real Chris Chan, that he
Okay,
was.
yeah.
And he said the other Chris Chan, the real Chris Chan's real name is Ian Brandon Anderson. It doesn't really matter how he came to that conclusion, but they said that's Chris Chan's real name as like a joke. And again, this is like joking. They're saying this to mess with Chris Chan. They don't actually
Okay.
believe this. So they say that to him, and he hates that name. He's like, "Don't call me Ian Brandon Anderson." So they just call him that to like mess with him. And so Liquid's final video on YouTube was him basically saying like he's gonna get married to Casey and he's won in life. Like he's the real Chris Chan.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't believe it. It's
And
because
he said-
now he's a cancer research doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, look, I'll pull up
about
the proof in a minute, okay? So yeah,
Is
I
that
just
his
bring that up to say
doctorate?
that is true. I mean, that's funny that it's just he's despicable. Yeah, he's a horrible person because Chris tries to portray him as like the Antichrist
Mm-hmm.
and how it's like horrible what he did to him, and yeah, it truly is. But it's just funny that his final message was "you losey," and like he's using the name to mock Chris, and he's saying "you lose."
Yep.
You know, that's why that is like a badass ending. I'm sorry, I don't care how mean
if
it
it's
is.
true.
That is how the video ended.
Oh, okay.
And also, that is true in terms of he did get with Casey, which is what Chris wanted. So anyway, yeah, that's what I meant. This is the end of part. This is the end of part. So part 2, we are gonna do next week. I'm serious, and I'm actually happy that it only took like an hour to get halfway through. So it's gonna take less than an hour to finish.
Yeah.
We'll definitely finish by the next episode and have time for more stuff.
Great.
But anyway, we're gonna get to Asperchu next, which is great, and we're gonna get to. I mean, that's like, I was giving a spoiler. Right now. We'll explain what it is, but the Asperchu saga was my favorite saga.
Okay.
So that's going to be fun. So yeah, that's the Chris Chan, a semi-comprehensive history, part 1. How do you feel, Jack?
I feel good. I learned a lot. I'm really tired.
All right, well that's fine. We can end now. You've been here a while. Thanks for staying longer. I do appreciate that because I just wanted to get part 1 done and then we could get to part.
I know how important it is to you.
Well, thank you, guys. We will be back next week. So see you then, guys. And until next time, bye, Jack.
Bye.
Bye.
What's the matter with you? I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.